So we are a little over a week away from what I think just might be one of the quietest but yet biggest fights in UFC history. And yes, I'm talking about UFC 320, the main event between Magomed Ankalaev and Alex Pereira. And the reason I say quiet is, where's the promotion for this, right? This is a huge fight at 205 pounds, man. We got one of the biggest stars in the UFC in Alex Pereira, who was on an absolute tear, one of the greatest runs we've ever seen in the UFC, this devastating, ferocious knockout artist looking to get his get back against the guy that a lot of people feel like is his kryptonite in Magomed Ankalaev, who had the answers to neutralize Pereira in fight number one. And we are in a very unique territory to where I honestly never thought we would really see the day to where it really feels like Alex is being counted out here in this rematch against Magomed Ankalaev. Because in the first fight, it was a chess match. It was a very technical back and forth between the two. And this is why I always wanted the fight, man, right? Because I knew that we were eventually going to see these guys in there more than once. But more importantly, it is the two best guys in the weight class. Both of these guys are elite strikers. They are very, very fun to watch. And stylistically, they trouble each other in different ways. But what I think is so crazy is the fact that people are counting out Poatan Pereira, which I think is a massive mistake coming into this rematch, because I got to be honest, the UFC recently dropped the first fight on the YouTube channel. I went out, I took a look at it, I sat down, and I watched this fight twice, right? For a number of reasons. I was looking for some certain things, but then I watched it in full time without the commentary, because to me, that's where I actually get the most out of watching a fight, instead of being influenced by the oohs and ahs and Joe Rogan talking about stupid stuff that honestly isn't super significant. But I believe that Alex Pereira just might have the answer for Magomed Ankalaev. And you guys know that I'm a big fan of both of these guys. Like I said, they're the two best light heavyweights. I think Magomed Ankalaev, skill-wise, him and John Jones are the two most skilled light heavyweights that we have ever seen. I've even said that I think Ankalaev could probably beat a prime Jones, right? Because we've seen John struggle with the boxing. That's a conversation for another time, right? But the point, Ankalaev is incredibly skilled, right? And he's a guy that it seems like the casual fan base doesn't want to accept, right? Because Poatan with the whole Shama, right? The Shama chanting, it was a fun run, right? And Alex Pereira, he's this character, he's this figure, right? He's this super scary guy, and he absolutely took the sport by storm. And Magomed Ankalaev is kind of starting to get the credit that he deserves, right? This is a very, very elite fighter in front of Alex Pereira. This isn't some reckless guy that's going to be throwing shots, giving Pereira all these counter opportunities. This is the first opponent other than Israel Adesanya, and I would say the only opponent that Pereira has faced that is going to make him strategically think. So we're going to discuss in this video, about this, man, what fans are saying, right? And I'm going to break down why Ankalaev is troubling for Pereira and what I think Pereira needs to do in order to get this thing done, / what I'm expecting in terms of the adjustments from Alex Pereira. Because, by the way, this guy, when it comes to rematches, he is absolutely flawless. We're going to talk a little bit about that in this video as well. I got a lot of thoughts, man. I'm all over the place, but I'm trying to reel it in because I have a lot of thoughts about this, right? And here's what a lot of fans are saying. He wasn't locked in, bro. He wasn't locked in, bro. That's the big line that you're hearing right now in the MMA community when I'm kind of looking around on social media is, look, you see Pereira hitting the pads. He looks clean. He looks crisp. He looks like he always does, hitting the pads, right? It sounds like gunshots, right? The jab, the cross. It's sweet, man. Watching high-level strikers hit the pads, we get it, but it's the same old Pereira that we always see, right? And a lot of people want to point out, well, he's not traveling around the world. He's not going to every single UFC event. And all those things, obviously, they take a toll on you. Clearly, we've seen Alex Pereira dial that back, so it seems, right? I saw him at UFC 319, and let me tell you, this guy, at the first time seeing him in person, he was near Curtis Blades, right? I was at the ceremonial weigh-ins for 319. Alex Pereira is a massive individual, dude. He looked like he dwarfed Curtis Blades out there. This is a massive guy, man, right? So that was the only thing that I saw him at and on social media, and I saw him in person there, right? And he, by the way, people saying that he lost the star power. It feels like it's been dampened. When he walked into that building, people went absolutely nuts. So Pereira is still very much a star, but there's some truth to that, right? A guy that he was traveling around all these different things, but don't make that the excuse as to why he lost to Magomed Ankalaev, because I feel like people are trying to use that as a crutch. They're trying to use that as some sort of coping mechanism, because the reality is, if Pereira knew that Ankalaev was going to be his toughest task, so why in the world would you not be dialing it in, making this the best training camp and the most intentional one that you've ever had? So I'm just not buying into that. Now, I get that, yeah, he's not traveling all over the place. It takes a toll on you. I get all those things. So that's definitely a factor, but I think people are blowing it way out of proportion than what it needs to be. And, you know, his activity caught up to him. Well, there's definitely truth to that, right? We have not seen Alex Pereira in the octagon since the last time these guys fought, which was back at UFC 313 back in March. So we're looking at basically 6 months since Alex Pereira has last fought. That is by far the longest layoff I believe that he has had since he has been in the UFC, right? He came over from kickboxing, and he has just been speed ran through the organization, which a lot of that has to do with his age, right? He didn't come over as some 22-year-old kid in the organization. He came over in his 30s, and it's basically like not here for a long time, here for a good time. But while Alex Pereira hasn't been here that long, it feels like he's been here forever because of all that he has been doing. So getting him to take a break, really kind of, you know, take some of that toll off the body, right? Be able to work some things, because when you're constantly in camp, you're not necessarily improving on certain areas. You're getting in shape and fine-tuning some things, but out of camp is really where a lot of guys are going to make those adjustments that they might need, especially coming into a big rematch here where there is a lot on the line for Poatan Pereira. Now, I get maximizing the star power. You're the champion, going around doing those different things, all those obligations, building the brand. I get all of it. But I believe that people are saying Pereira's not as motivated as he was, bro. I'm not buying into that. I think that this guy is incredibly motivated. He loves fighting. And I think we are going to see a very dangerous version of Pereira come fight night. And that's why I say, man, Poatan fans, you should be very encouraged heading into this rematch, right? I just pulled this little thing here where Alex says he's only shown 5% of what he's been working on ahead of the Ankalaev rematch. Sometimes people say I'm showing too much, but I'm only showing 5%. Now, on my channel in the past, like in particular when he was leading up to the fight at UFC 300 against Jamahal Hill, I broke down Alex Pereira's pad work because I basically showed you exactly what he was going to do to Jamahal Hill, which he did completely to a T. And Alex Pereira has been one of those guys, even dating back to his kickboxing days, because I've been watching most of his career. This is a guy that literally posts any training footage that he wants, sparring, this and that, to where he basically is like, you see what I'm going to do, go ahead and stop it. And he finally ran into somebody that had the answer, and now we're seeing more of the ghost version of Pereira. Instead of being on social media showing everything, we're getting this kind of this mystique to the Pereira camp to where not much is being shown. Not much is being shown, but at the end of the day, we already know what Pereira is going, what his assets are in terms of his striking and all those different things. But I believe that there are some adjustments that they're going to make in this fight that could possibly help him get this one done. But you have to be encouraged if you're a Poatan fan, man, right? Obviously, you got outstruck by Ankalaev, which I'm sure a lot of people were not expecting. I told you don't be surprised if that happens. But then also the fact that his takedown defense was much better than I think anyone thought it was going to be. And I think he even surprised himself. I think if you would have asked Pereira leading up to that fight, are you going to get taken down? He would have probably said, yeah, I think so. And the fact, I'm just guessing, right? I think that he was surprised at how good his takedown defense was. Right, because the only time he really got tested with the grappling was against a guy like Jan Blachowicz, and we saw him in some bad spots. And theoretically, Ankalaev's a better grappler than a guy like Jan Blachowicz. Right, so now that Pereira has basically, yeah, you got outstruck, but we saw you could stop the takedowns. That's encouraging, because if you can stop the takedowns, have confidence there, keep the fight on the feet, that should bode well for Poatan Pereira. Now, let's talk about the history of his in rematches for Poatan, because, you might say, Jake, this is kickboxing, it's MMA, it's different, and there's a point that I'm trying to get at here, okay? Listen, the Yuri fights, we'll start with that, right? So Yuri Prochazka, right, the first time Pereira, him fighting for the interim title, right, what was supposed to be the Jones-Stipe card, that fell off, and that became the big fight. Pereira moving up to 205, beat Jan Blachowicz, and I said that Alex Pereira, by the way, I have not picked against Alex Pereira other than the Ankalaev fight in his entire career, right? So people that, you're an Alex hater, man, get the hell out of here with that. But the point, Yuri Prochazka and Alex Pereira in the first fight, you saw Alex get the knockout to where it was a rather competitive fight. And then in the rematch, it was short notice for both guys at UFC 303. It was not even close. Alex Pereira absolutely blew the doors off of Yuri Prochazka and completely dominated him. So the point, he goes out there and he loses to Jason Wilness in 2015. Gets that one back in 2019 by starching him with a ferocious flying knee in the first round. Loses to now teammate Yusri Belgoroy back in 2017, the first time these guys, fought. Then he goes out there in 2017 in December, so a few months later, towards the end of the year, and he is able to stop Yusri Belgoroy. They run the trilogy, knocks him out in the first round. So what am I getting at? Every time Alex Pereira is in a rematch, he makes the correct adjustments to come out here and not just win these fights, but go out there and dust his opposition, even if he loses the fight. Right? So he lost a decision to Wilness, comes back, starches him in the first round, loses to Yusri, comes back and starches him in the rematch. And then they run a trilogy. Okay, you're going to give me more information, so I'll knock you out in the first round. Right? And the Yuri fight, you got to see that. Look how easily he disposed of Yuri Prochazka in the rematch. So Alex Pereira, what that shows me is he can make the necessary adjustments. He's not just some meathead like a lot of people make him out to be, like, he's just this big scary guy and he's going to go in there and do what he does and there's going to be no adjustments. That is not the case. That's not the case. You think Glover Teixeira and team that they're just going to have him go in there and try to do the same thing? You're out of your mind. They know how to make adjustments. Alex Pereira knows how to make adjustments. That's a very important thing coming into this. And to me, this is a very, very key detail that I want people to take note of. Alex Pereira fought a guy by the name of Artem Vahitov. You might know who that is. It seemed like he was going to come into the UFC. I believe he was on the Contender Series, got the win, something with the money or whatever, and so he decided to not come into the UFC, whatever it was. But what I felt was so interesting about this was these guys fought in January of 2021 to where I actually thought that Artem Vahitov won this fight, but they gave it to Alex Pereira. It was a split decision. And then the rematch, it was Alex Pereira's last fight in kickboxing, and they gave it to Artem Vahitov when I actually thought Alex Pereira won that one. So I feel like the judges got this one backwards, but it was Alex Pereira's last fight in kickboxing. So who knows? Maybe a little something going on there. But the point that I'm trying to make is the first fight, Artem Vahitov, he's a pressure-based striker, good high guard, very defensively responsible, hard to hit clean. Again, a very different style, but kind of reminds me of Ankalaev a little bit, right? Hard to hit, good defense, applies that smart pressure just at the edge of range to where you can kind of, you can kick him, but then he kind of crushes the space. That's exactly what Vahitov did in the first fight. And Pereira was saying, look, coming into the rematch, I have got to stay off the back foot. I have got to dictate the pace. I have got to be the one being aggressive moving forward. And what did we see? We saw him come out much more aggressive, much more front kicks up the middle, throwing bigger, heavier shots upstairs and trying to do a lot more to gain the respect of Vahitov to not allow him to dictate the pace the whole time. And then we saw Vahitov start to kind of get back to his game plan. But guys, the point I'm trying to make is I feel like this is a sign of what is to come for Alex Pereira in this rematch. And that is the fact that Alex's adjustment to getting pressured heavy is to pressure you back. He's not going to want to be on the back foot like he was for literally almost the entire fight against Magomed Ankalaev, which is something that we really never have seen from Pereira in MMA, right? And you heard Adesanya saying, listen, when I was putting that pressure on Pereira, in their second fight, he didn't like that, right? He was a different kind of fighter, and that is the reality, right? Pereira becomes very predictable if you're putting pressure on him. When he's fighting off of the back foot, he banks on the left hook, right? He tries to throw that drift away hook. We saw him, knock Yuri Prochazka out twice. Well, caught him at the end of the first round in the rematch, but in the first fight, that's how he was able to put him down. So he becomes very, very one-dimensional off the back foot. He absolutely wants to be moving forward. So the point I'm trying to make is coming off of an aggressive guy that pressured the hell out of him in the first fight, he came out and made those adjustments to then be the guy that's pressuring forward in the rematch. Important detail coming into this, in my opinion. So let's talk about the fight now with Magomed Ankalaev. I just wanted to bring these things in because I feel like the people that are counting out Alex Pereira feel like you can't do that, right? For the evidence that I just gave you. Now, I understand that that's kickboxing and MMA is different, but the bottom line is we've really seen everything go Alex Pereira's way inside the UFC outside of getting knocked out by Izzy after he was beating him and, kind of just lost respect for him up against the fence and all that kind of stuff. And now he loses to Ankalaev, and this is new territory in MMA, having to get back on someone that's beaten you. right? So what went wrong for, Alex in fight one? He let Ankalaev control the fight. Alex Pereira was very uncharacteristic, right? And it speaks to the skill set of Magomed Ankalaev is he just pressured Alex the entire time. He controlled the fight. He played that slow pace where I'm just going to see everything that's coming. I'm going to utilize my speed. I'm going to fight that comfortable fight that I like. That's exactly what Ankalaev did. He fought a perfect fight in terms of, maintaining the range and controlling the pace of the fight. It's exactly what he did. Right now, Alex got away from the jab, man, right? In round number one, he was kicking from the outside, damaging the lead leg of Magomed Ankalaev. And what have we seen from Ankalaev, man? While he's gotten a little bit better at it, he gets his legs obliterated. It's what happened in the Jan Blachowicz fight. That is something that everyone tries to target, right? And then we saw, especially in the fifth round, the jab was thudding against Ankalaev. He was making Magomed pay every single time he entered range. He'd pick him off. Ankalaev would raise that knee, switch stances, boom, would tag him with a jab down the pipe. But he got away from these things, right? He brought him back in the fifth round, but it was too late at that point. And his corner was like, please throw a jab, and he just wouldn't do it. He wouldn't do it, which a lot of that had to do with, I think he was surprised by the speed and the striking abilities of Ankalaev. And Ankalaev gained his respect by hurting him really bad at the end of round number two. But these are things that Alex Pereira is going to have to adjust and get back to in this fight if he wants a chance to win, right? And he would, like I said, he was on the back foot the entire time. And he couldn't get off the fence. When Ankalaev wanted to put Pereira up against the fence, he was able to keep him there, control him, and take away his explosiveness. And he was able to control him. Alex is going to have an answer for that. He cannot spend time up against the fence, obviously, right? And we've seen referees, I feel like this is a key thing, we've seen refs stepping in for everything now. They're being very impatient with guys, keeping guys up against the fence and controlling guys on the ground, right? Especially if Mark Goddard's the referee. He might separate this quite a few times, but you can't count on that. You can't count on that. I don't know who the ref's going to be. I'm just bringing that up. And most importantly, out of all these other things is the fact that Alex multiple times was out of position and got countered. He was kind of hesitating on what he wanted to throw because I think that he was just shocked at how fast Ankalaev was, and Magomed made him pay every single time he got out of position. Go back and watch the fight. Look at all the times Alex was out of position, trying to feint something, being like, oh, he's actually not in range, and then bang, he would get countered. The speed on the side of Ankalaev is massive. So Ankalaev fought a perfect fight. He gave, actually, I shouldn't even say perfect. He fought a really good fight, but there's obviously a lot of things that Ankalaev can change coming into this. But these are the things that I noticed that went wrong for Alex Pereira. He's normally the aggressor. He's normally the one that is dictating the pace, controlling how this fight is going. He didn't do that in this fight. And when you take that away from Alex, he's not the same guy. He's not the same guy. So it's going to be interesting to see what kind of adjustments he makes that we're going to discuss in just a minute. But I feel like this is right. Everyone just says, well, Ankalaev's is kryptonite or he's a hard matchup. But why is he such a massive problem for Poatan? And that is because people just don't want to give Magomed the credit that he deserves. And this guy is an elite fighter. He's a complete fighter. He can do everything. He could box. He's got speed. He could kick. He could grapple. He literally could do everything, man. He's just a super well-rounded fighter, and he doesn't take crazy chances. Right? If you look at outside of Israel Adesanya, the opponents that Alex Pereira has faced, especially at light heavyweight, Yuri Prochazka, dangerous. We all love Yuri, but he's reckless. He's reckless, and he takes wild chances, right? Jamal Hill takes chances, drops his hands, throws big shots, gives you those opportunities where they crash into range and allow you to easily counter with that left hook, which is Alex Pereira's most dangerous weapon. Ankalaev doesn't give you the opportunity to do those because he doesn't really overextend and put himself out of position by taking wild, unnecessary chances. Which people are like, oh, well, he's boring. He's a tactical fighter, man. And a lot of this, oh, well, Ankalaev is boring. When he first bursted onto the scene in the UFC, he was knocking people out. The Ion Kuntalaba fight. Remember when he knocked out Johnny Walker, especially in the rematch, which, by the way, Ankalaev, off of running things back, Kuntalaba, Johnny Walker, he was able to get KOs in the second meeting. But the point I'm making is Magomed Ankalaev, man, this isn't just some fighter here. This is a guy that people were saying, oh, he's boring, he's boring, he's boring. That was my point that I was trying to make. The reality is guys stopped chasing after Ankalaev because he would knock them out. He's got legit countering instincts. He's lightning fast. He's got high fight IQ, right? He's well-rounded. He understands what he's doing in there, man. The way that he was controlling the lead hand of Alex Pereira. He was maintaining the range really well, right? And his speed obviously is a super huge issue for Pereira because while Pereira's getting up there in age, it's obvious to me that he was struggling with a southpaw fast guy like Khalil Roundtree, right? And then Roundtree started to fade. Pereira just started to figure some things out, and then he was able to get him out of there. But Roundtree, I think, was up 2-0 on the scorecards, right? So the speed is something that is clearly giving Poatan an issue at this point in his career, and Ankalaev's got plenty of that. He's got the grappling threat in his back pocket, even though he wasn't really successful in fight one with it. It's still there. Makes Alex worry. He's got versatile striking. He can throw everything. His boxing is clean. I think he's got the best boxing in the division. Good kicks, good front kicks. That he was landing nicely on Pereira, good leg kicks. He's got very sound defense. Super hard to hit clean, man. Super hard to hit clean. Doesn't get himself really out of position. Very defensively responsible. He's just a true technician. Positional awareness, right? He circles off, keeps his foot on the outside, doesn't get in those positions to where he's, stepping, and Alex Pereira wins the foot battle and can land a nasty shot down the pipe. And he controls range incredibly well. Stands right at that edge of the range to where you can kind of kick him, but he's close enough to be able to step in and counter. So all of these things is why he's such a massive problem, because he's a complete fighter that has really good speed and really doesn't have any holes in his game. He's complete, and he's a technician. That's a recipe for a disaster for a guy like Poatan Pereira. So here's what I'm expecting to see from Alex in this rematch, because if he's going to win this fight, it's a steep hill to climb, man. Because Ankalaev, to me, like I said, I think he's probably the best light heavyweight that we've ever seen. Him and John Jones, right? If you're going to make the argument, it's between Ankalaev and John Jones, right? In terms of the complete skill sets. But this is what I'm expecting to see Alex and his teammate adjust to coming into the rematch. The left hook, man. Obviously, that is his most dangerous weapon. I don't think it is his best weapon, but in a way, it's actually the jab. We'll talk about that in a second. The left hook is something that Alex has become way too dependent on, right? Whenever you pressure him and put him on the back foot and make him uncomfortable, he tends to just swing the left hook out there, and he gets very, very dependent upon it, right? And Ankalaev was starting to pull that out of him, right? He was controlling the lead hand of Alex, neutralizing the left hook, right? So Alex is going to have an answer for the lead hand battle, and don't bank on the left hook. He's got to get back to setting it up, and how does he do that? With the jab, and the jab, man. I can't tell you how important that is in this fight. If you don't see Alex throwing jabs in this fight, he's not going to win, in my opinion. We saw in round 5. In round 5, it was the best round of the fight, I thought, one of at least, for Poatan in the fight. He was landing the leg kicks. Ankalaev would step in, boom, he would tag him with a jab. He's got to get back to doing that, right? You can't compete with the speed of Ankalaev, right? You just can't. So what do? You chop at his base, make him more of a stationary target, which is exactly what Alex does in most of his fights. He's got the best leg kicks, I think, in the history of the sport, right? I know there's guys like Gaethje, whatever, but in terms of how hard they are to see, he hides them very well. It's more of a Dutch kickboxing style-like technique. Doesn't really turn, the shoulders stay square and just kind of, boom, flicks it out there. Doesn't turn all the way over because he's got crazy power, right? It works for him. And he's going to try to take away the base more of Magomed Ankalaev. Make him take away some of that speed. Don't allow him to be as explosive with the boxing. And then that will set up the jab. The jab to the body. The jab as he enters range. And we all know once you start reaching for the jab, that's when that left hook comes. So he's got to set up the left hook. Don't just blindly spam it like he was in the first fight. And a lot of that was because he was uncomfortable by the pressure that Ankalaev was putting on him. Right, he's got to do more than just jab, left hook, and leg kicks. He's got to mix in the high kicks and the front kicks, right? We saw him land a really good high kick against Ankalaev in this fight, right? He would throw a leg kick, boom, bring the high kick up there. He does a great job of mixing those up. He's got to do that more in this fight. The leg kicks, the jab, and variety when it comes to the kicks. The front kicks, that's what he was using against Vahitab in kickboxing, a guy that was trying to pressure the hell out of him. It's a good way to punish, Ankalaev from moving forward, right? Look what Ankalaev was doing to him. Front kicking him around, controlling the range, landing those shots into the breadbasket. They suck, man, if you've ever been hit with a front kick. He's got to be prepared to defend the single leg, right? Because Alex Pereira did a very good job stopping the double, which is what Ankalaev was, primarily shooting, in the first fight. And he was able to get him up against the fence, but he was getting deep on some shots, and Alex would dig for the underhooks and did a great job defending. He was, controlled up against the fence, but in terms of getting taken down, it didn't happen. He even hit a nice foot sweep on Ankalaev. But I believe that Ankalaev, like I said, he's a smart fighter. He's going to make some adjustments himself. And I believe that the adjustment is going to be, instead of chasing that double, because Alex Pereira is a big, strong guy, and he's very strong in that position when you're trying to shoot for the double, change it to a single. Get him off balance. Jan Blachowicz was doing a great job of that, hiking that up and then being able to take him down. So I feel like that's something that we might see Magomed do here. And especially if Alex fights a good game plan on the feet, I could see Ankalaev looking to try to grapple more if he's not getting the better of the striking exchanges in the rematch. right? And he's got to use his reach. He's got a couple-inch reach advantage. He's got to use it. He didn't use it in the first fight. And that comes from throwing the jab. You got to make Ankalaev pay if you're Pereira, because if you don't do it and you don't gain his respect, he's going to walk him down and do exactly what he did in the first fight. Right? And he's got to stop being lazy defensively. I get criticized for this all the time, and I've been saying it, man. Alex Pereira, he's very, very good defensively in terms of slipping and ripping, but he gets very lazy with his defense. Keeps his head in the middle, doesn't really move his head a ton, and just relies on the long guard so much to where it is very easy to land those straight shots down the middle, especially when you are fast like Magomed Ankalaev. He's got to be more locked in with his defense. Can't be so lazy. Can't be so lazy, right? Especially when you're at a speed disadvantage, right? And he's got to throw more variety, as I mentioned before. He can't just sit there and just jab and leg kick. And, Ankalaev knows that that's coming. You got to provide more, give him more to think about. That's what Ankalaev did to him, right? He's got to open up early and move forward. He has to move forward. Alex Pereira will not win this fight on the back foot. It was very clear. You saw that in fight one. He's got to open up early. He started very aggressive with the forward pressure, but he's going to have to take some chances in this fight. Which pressuring forward, being more aggressive, putting yourself in the line of fire, that could obviously put Alex Pereira out there to get knocked out. But also, it could put him in position to land that left hook or that big power shot that could stop the fight and get him the win in this rematch. And don't be scared of the grappling, right? Like I said, he should be very encouraged, right? Because he stopped all the Ankalaev takedowns in fight number one. And if you ask Alex, I feel like he would have said, I'll probably end up on the ground at some point coming into that fight, right? And maybe that's part of the reason he was a little bit hesitant to open up and those kinds of things, which is what I feel like a lot of people think. That's not exactly what I think. I think a lot of it had to do with the speed of Magomed Ankalaev. He would make Alex pay every single time with speed. When Alex got out of position, thought about throwing something, boom, he was getting countered by the speedy Ankalaev. So I believe if Alex Pereira gets back to the kicking game, Magomed Ankalaev, hinders his movement. Ankalaev was walking gingerly, leaving the octagon after winning the title. He's got to get back to the leg kicks, right? And then Ankalaev's going to try to make him pay for throwing those naked kicks, right? Because especially with that southpaw orthodox matchup, you're just kind of swinging that lead leg, you're swinging the leg around, and you're not exactly in the best defensive position to where Ankalaev will step in and try to counter with the boxing. So he's got to be ready for that. But I think if he attacks the legs of Ankalaev, takes away some of the movement and the explosiveness and gets that jab going, I think Alex Pereira could give himself a very, very good shot to get this thing done, man, especially with the forward pressure. He cannot get walked down like he did against Ankalaev in the last fight. He just can't do it, right? And I know people were saying, some things about maybe Pereira was compromised, all those kinds of things. The bottom line is what we saw in the octagon was Ankalaev controlled the entire fight. He did. Pereira had moments, but Ankalaev dictated the fight. He dictated the dance, and the guy that does that is the one that is usually going to get the job done. So the point, Poatan Pereira cannot be counted out in this rematch, man, right? My early prediction, like I've been saying, is Magomed Ankalaev to win this fight, and I do believe that Alex is going to be more aggressive because he's going to have to be in order to win this thing. If he tries to go out there and stick and move and play that kind of game, like, sure, maybe he can win a decision, but that's not really Alex's game, right? His game is kind of, touching with the jab, touching, leg kicks, crippling your movement, and then walking you down and landing that big shot and getting you out of there, right? He fell behind against Khalil Roundtree, right? And when he falls behind, he's usually able to make the reads that he needs and is able to kind of melt you with the pressure and then find that shot to get you out of there. He's not really a decision-winning fighter. Look at the Adesanya fight, the first one. He was down big in that fight and then was able to land a shot late. So it comes down to basically landing that shot if you're Alex Pereira here. I don't know if he's able to out-volume Magomed. He was outstruck in the first fight. But to count out Poatan is absolutely ridiculous in this fight, man, for all of the reasons that I brought up in this video. He is very, very capable of winning this rematch. The problem is in order for him to try to get it done, I feel like he's going to have to be more aggressive. And whenever you do that against a speedy, fast guy like Ankalaev, which when people are like, Ankalaev's boring, it's because Rakic ran away. It's because these guys, they don't want to engage in the pocket and in the line of fire with Ankalaev because of how dangerous he is with the speed and the precision. That's the reality. So I think he's going to have to put himself in harm's way. And I think that there's a real shot that we see Alex Pereira get knocked out by Ankalaev in this fight. But at the same time, putting himself in the line of fire and moving forward and beating up the base of Ankalaev, landing the jab, making him pay, that ultimately could, because again, Ankalaev was very aware of the left hook. But if you can attack a guy's leg, hinder his movement enough, and get him reaching with the jab, as much as you know that left hook is coming, we've seen Pereira find ways to land that shot and get the job done. So the bottom line, don't count out Poatan in this rematch, man, because what we have seen throughout the course of his career, he is flawless when it comes to figuring things out and getting it done. It's going to be a tough hill for him to climb, man. So again, not a prediction video here, right? Like I said, my early lean is Magomed Ankalaev, but going back and watching that first fight, I see a lot of things that Pereira can do this time around that could give himself a chance to win this. But he's going to have to anticipate Ankalaev making some adjustments as well, which we'll discuss a little bit more come fight week. But if you guys enjoyed this video, do me a favor, give it a like. Let me know what you think down in the comments. And if you're new, please subscribe to the channel. I would greatly appreciate it. See you next time.